I started a new business called the Human-Centric Leader, where it's all about giving leaders and businesses the tools to focus their cultures and their kind of business decisions around how treating people well actually make you money, give you profit, and that those two things can coexist.
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.
Welcome back to another episode of the Business After Hours podcast, here with my co-host Jared and our guest Rachel. How are y'all doing today?
Can't complain. It's been a pretty good day.
Yeah? Whereabouts are you, Rachel?
I am in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So, yep, we just had a huge snowstorm, negative 30, and now it's 72. So I cannot complain about this beautiful sunshine.
How affected were you by the hurricane?
Luckily, not very affected. It's about 4 hours up into the mountains from here. So we've definitely been sending all of our resources up there to help them, but we've been okay down here.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Good to hear. Glad you're safe at least and doing well. Well, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself and some history of yourself?
Absolutely. So I am traditionally a marketer. I come from the world of kind of big tech and working through what it looks like to reach out to customers and clients through sort of your traditional or maybe semi-traditional digital marketing aspects. And in the last few years, I've actually started my own business back in 2016 and then gone into fractional consulting. So really just fancy for part-time marketing executive for hire. And in the last couple of years of doing that, I realized there's such a central conversation that we have as thinking about our clients as leaders with how do we then think about our employees as our clients from the business perspective. And as these things started to roll together, I started a new business called the Human-Centric Leader, where it's all about giving leaders and businesses the tools to focus their cultures and their kind of business decisions around how treating people well actually make you money, give you profit, and that those two things can coexist. So I'm a little bit of the fractional CMO now and a little bit of a leadership coach, and it's a really fun kind of duality.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What have you learned from coaching that was kind of that you might have needed to know in marketing?
That is a very good question. I think that there's a commonality in the nature of who we are as people. We want to have purpose. We want to be needed and valued. We want to be able to feel like our time is worth every second that we dedicate to the entity, whatever business we're in. And I think as a marketer, we can really learn from how leaders think. And then also leaders can learn how the human thinks. And those things don't have to be, all touchy-feely and emotionally driven. But if we think about doing marketing, we're really just talking about solving problems for the average human. And if we think about what the average things are that they want, those things can really live together and we can have more compelling marketing and ideas that are shared if we think of it in both ways.
I got you. Now, what's the difference between the fractional CMO and hiring a marketing company? What would be the difference?
Question.
Yeah, that's the question on everybody's mind. I mean, fractionality as an idea is sort of a new concept in the industry, at least. It's been around for a while, but not very well known.
Right.
We see a lot of fractional CFOs, and they just call themselves part-time CFOs, right? And everyone's like, yeah, of course, I understand. And so I would say it really depends on the thing that the person's offering. So not all fractional CMOs are going to be the same. So you want to look behind just the title and actually ask, okay, well, what is their expertise then? Because in an ideal world, a fractional anything should come in for a short period of time and be able to focus on short-term goals and a very specific expertise. So for me, I love working with smaller companies that are ready for hypergrowth. And I specialize in marketing strategies, organizational alignment, and process improvement. So if your company is looking at these things in order to scale and grow, I'm your girl. But if you are looking at someone who needs an expertise in like doing graphic design or Maybe it's more of a demand generation like push where you want something really specific, or maybe you're an enterprise that needs a solution of some sort. Then you're probably looking more at consulting or a totally different person. And so it's really just a matter of what kind of need you have. A great example, if I can, is
Of course.
last year I filled in for a family leave. 2 executives went out on family leave. So they didn't actually need a whole, long-term person. They just needed someone for 6 months or so that could bridge the gap of making those executive decisions so that their businesses could keep running. So it's a good example of where, consultancy might have a little bit different of a bend or a specific project, and, the fractional can be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah. So do you find that the coaching is a lot more flexible? Is that what you're saying?
So the coaching is sort of separate. The coaching is almost a completely different reason that you might hire me. Now, the good news is, as a marketing executive, you get the coaching for free.
Right.
Marketing executive part. But the coaching part, that's really, for anyone who wants to build a culture or be a manager that takes this human-centric approach. So if, I've been defining human-centric leadership as prioritizing the development and the growth of the individual over the organization on the path to results. So if you think, hey, we can treat our people just as good as treating our processes and our goals, then you're an ideal candidate to say, okay, so then how do I do that? What does that look like for implementation, for building something or growing something? So they're a little bit different, even though one benefits from the other.
Well, it sounds like you'll get, like you said, both essentially.
Right.
Especially if they hire you on as a marketer, you're going to give some consulting advice through the consulting side of things. So
That's exactly right. Yeah,
okay.
it's a bonus for the business.
Right.
Yeah.
For one.
So what made you pivot from the CMO life to coaching life?
Yeah. Can I be really honest? It was totally an
Please.
accident. I
Okay.
did it on accident. Over the summer last year, I was rebranding. So like I said, I had started my company in 2016 just purely as a consultant in the marketing space, and went to fractional work 2 years ago. And so last year I was like, you know what, I just need a refresh. I need to be a different kind of presence in the market. I'm going to finally invest in myself. Let's do this. And as I was going through the process of rebranding, as so many businesses do, they realize that the way that they talk to their customers or who they really want to reach out to is different than what they initially thought. And so I thought to myself, well, instead of jamming my messages together about how I do leadership coaching and I also do the marketing part, and those are different audiences that might really benefit from those types of services, even though there's tons of overlap. I'm
Right.
just going to separate the websites. And then that way it's super simple for people to self-identify. And I just thought that that was such a logical decision at the time. And
Okay.
then a month after I launched, so it's too late to go back. Actually, it's never too late, but in theory, it's too late to go back. I was like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I just created a whole second business. I was like, why did I do that? Why? That's the answer. I just thought it was a great idea. And I do still kind of think it's a great idea. But the path towards that idea started in 2020 during COVID. And COVID, was such a weird time for businesses
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to expand or survive. And I remember thinking one day I was managing a bunch of people on a team. And I was like, I think that we don't have to do this like all or nothing approach to leadership. Like I've always thought that giving teams tools to not survive, to thrive individually, would be a really important piece of being a good, thoughtful manager for the business. And so that
Okay.
was always sort of my stance. But it wasn't until one day I was just in my house painting a room, listening to an audiobook, and this idea came to me from something that was said, that we really need to step behind team values. And team values can drive decisions that you make as a leader. It can drive decisions you make as the manager for the team. It can be something that the team members then embrace and become. And so as I thought about, okay, so then what do I want to stand for? I came up with these 4 phrases, and I was like, okay, if everyone on my team uses these phrases, we will win. And they were, I'm sorry, I need help, I don't know, and I made a mistake. And my team completely changed, and we grew by 300% over the last, or in the next 2 years after that. We had 27% revenue increase with our activities alone. We had 100% retention, which in a churn rate perspective and cost of the business is huge.
Right.
And so I saw that there's this sort of trickle down effect of, when you give certain things to your teams, like the ability to choose the best way that they want to work, or certain projects, but focusing on outcomes instead of the way that they accomplish the project or task, there's a huge amount of creativity and production and better connection with what the business goals are, and that has real tangible outcomes. So that was the real baby idea that was born and then developed over the next several years. But I do like to tell people that it was sort of an accident that I officially became a leadership coach, but it was a long time coming.
So when
Awesome.
you had made a point that you were at a decision in your business to make a pivot.
Yeah.
As a marketer and as a small business owner, what were the signs in your business that made it so that the light bulb went off that you have to pivot?
Yeah, so my company is called Pivot Studios, and so I love talking about pivots because it's never this huge moment, right? It's just that little light bulb or that little voice that you're like, I need to try something slightly different or change just a little bit. And so it was a lot of slow steps towards that. When I originally started my business, it was always with the intention to have it be a fully fledged, 100% of the time, 40 hours a week position. And over the course of several years, I kept getting poached back into other people's businesses. And so it was sort of this side entity that I did. And it was great. I had a lot of fun being able to work with lots of different companies. And so when I finally stopped and I was like, I want to be 100% in. That was when I also made that shift to the fractional space. And I did that because as I was looking at where my expertise was and where my business's expertise was, it wasn't aligned anymore with doing tactics. They weren't the things that I had the most fun doing. And they weren't the things that, frankly, people thought I had the best value in. I can outsource graphic design. I can do it, but outsourcing it is faster and cheaper. I can do the activities of setting up digital campaigns and, putting the pieces together to measure and report. But my brain is better spent on strategizing and really making sure that we have a compelling message that connects with people rather than the tactical side. And so as you start moving through all of those pieces, I then went and got customer validation. What are people actually hiring me for? Not, what category do they fit in my business, because I've labeled it as this category and therefore this is what quote unquote they're hiring me for, right? There's kind of this fine difference.
Right.
But what are they actually using from those services? And then what will make me money? Because ultimately all businesses have to turn that profit, right? I can't just do something I like that isn't going to have people pay me for it. And so because of all those small steps, kind of observing what I'm good at, observing what my customers need, and then what I actually can get paid for, I went for it. And I said, I think now's the time. The market's ready. I'm ready. We have the time and, effort dedicated to it. So we're going to do it. And that was really the path that we took to figure out this little pivot.
So it was really just kind of getting down and dirty with yourself, essentially, and your business, and kind of getting to the crux of everything, which it's hard for business owners to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I was listening to this author. She used to be a journalist, and she used to work, I think, for the New York Times, editing. Somebody will fact check me on that. But I believe Julia Keller is her name, and she is writing this book all about quitting. And it has been on my mind so much in the last week because as business owners, we deal constantly with the sunk cost fallacy. So I've gone so far into this in time, effort, money, that to pull back is huge loss. And that's correct. there is a huge sunk cost to it. But the fallacy comes in that if you keep doubling down on it, then there's just more cost loss, even though you feel like you're gaining by doubling down. And Keller was really talking about how we glorify quitting when really we should be able to equally say quitting is a valid and useful entity. I mean, if you think about all the different things that used to be something else, like I think about YouTube sometimes. So YouTube
Right.
originally was a dating site. It's
It's
not
crazy.
even close to that
Yeah.
anymore, right? And so they had to quit that in order to do something else. And I think, sometimes it's the hardest thing for leaders to look inside and say, okay, it's not just about what is the thing I need to pivot to, or how do I know for sure this is the pivotal moment, but what is the thing keeping me back from quitting? Maybe that's where we need to start so that we can accept that quitting isn't equal to bad. There is no like moral assignment to the idea to quit.
Right.
And therefore that could be the best choice you make.
What's it been like with the new 2025 year and how you operate now with these two businesses?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of support. So I couldn't I could not do it by myself. I have lots of different ways that I talk to people. Usually I still reach out to businesses and talk to them about how they approach life, their revenue, their profits. My target audience is smaller businesses. They're usually in the series funded like area somewhere. And so they have tons and tons of opportunity for what does it look like for us to grow our business. And when you think about how to grow, it is tactical. So there's marketing, and it is also culture. How do we grow this thing so that people want to be here, or that people give their best selves, or how we can choose the best things for our people and also for our processes in order to hit our goals. So in 2025, it's been a lot more testing. How do these things come together? How do they separate? I have different pipelines that I use for both, but I don't try to look at them like they're 100% separate. I look at them like what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as the saying
Sure.
is, and that these things can be both as well as separate.
What was because so most business owners that we have on our shows always refer back to COVID. COVID
Mm,
obviously was a big factor in our life. What was your big lesson out of COVID?
it's a good question. I think
Okay.
because so much about what my coaching business is now was tested in the fire of COVID. And frankly, I don't know that I could have come to the same conclusion without having this really unique moment of time. There was, of course, the always demanding aspect of we have to make profit as a company. And
Right.
so, working on that assumption, I mean, I was putting in, I, I don't know, 14 to 15-hour days. I mean, I was leading people in India and in California, which is more than a 12-hour time span, and having to be available for all of that. So how do I make sure that when everyone is facing similar ability to work that long and have that much commitment to just being available because you don't have anything else to do,
Right.
how do you help people prevent their own forms of burnout? How do you retain good talent? Since the job market at the time was to the employee's favor, right? So if they left, they could basically get a job anywhere.
Right.
How do we know that while everyone's remote, that you're actually doing work? How do you manage remote teams? And how do you do that in a way where people don't feel micromanaged, or don't do that in a way where they don't feel motivated to show up and give their best aspects? And so my biggest learning coming out from 2020 was truly this idea that we are able to achieve incredible goals while also helping people with creating specific boundaries and having them I don't want to say healthy, because I think that has a really strange connotation in this like current climate that we're in, but more of a reciprocal benefit from the business to them and them to the business so that they truly can thrive being at work and at home, since those two
Right.
things were sort of merged. So that was a big like testing ground for me that I feel like was a huge pro for just being a leader in general.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like you can take on anybody? You know,
Yes.
or
I have
Better say yes.
right, I know 100%. There was this influencer who once said, I have the terrible weakness of thinking I can do anything. I honestly also, I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
Right. Because why else would you
it-
not want to be in business?
Right.
I think sometimes there's certain customers though that it's fair to say no when they don't fit your, your coaching style, your values, that kind of thing. So I was just kind of curious on your thoughts on that.
Yes, okay, I have thoughts. This is a great question. Um, you're correct. I will not actually say yes to anyone from a client perspective. And there's times in your business where you have to because you need the revenue. And there's times in your business where you can be really selective because you have limited time, but plenty of like cash flow, right? So there's always for business leaders the balancing. But I think, trust is an interesting word when you talk about it from the relation of a business to a potential client or a current client. And we like to think of it as an all encompassing word. You either trust this person or this business or you do not.
Right.
And in fact, it's very contextual where and how you trust people. So, for example, Amazon. They are a trusted company for delivering on time, customer service, that return policy, love it. Like we as consumers, there's a lot of trust that's been built. But when you talk to people about Amazon from a work culture perspective or an employer, we have a very different
Very
impression
different.
of
Yep.
what that trust is. And so, to answer your question, I do think I could work with anyone. I mean, I've worked with enterprise companies, I've worked with companies at all stages, I've worked with brand new baby companies. I have a nonprofit client. So, really, the could question of that is yes, of course. But when it comes down to, but who do I really trust that this is a mutually beneficial relationship we're about to embark on, that is always something that I ask before saying yes. And if I don't think that trust can be established in a way where we truly both benefit, because otherwise it's not going to be good for either party, then I won't say yes. And I think that that's a really important question to ask when you have the luxury to be able to ask that as a business.
It's
That's a
good.
good way to put it. Absolutely.
So you had mentioned a little bit ago about our current culture. How would you define our current culture in the workforce?
Yeah.
I think that based on the market at the moment, we definitely have an employer's market. And so I'm going to split this answer into two. You're trying
Sure.
to trap me into something interesting and I'm going to follow.
He was. He's good at that.
So I think from an employer, you are so lucky. Right now, you hold the cards and you get to decide what you do with your workforce, whether that's layoffs or acceleration, cutting back, liquidizing your assets. I mean, there's tons of options for you right now, and you're welcome to take advantage of that. It historically never stays that way. It always swings back to the other side and then we'll swing back to the other side. And so while right now, lots of leaders are acting like they'll never see consequences, I think that we're going to see that swinging back, and then there will, in fact, be consequences for businesses. So now's the time that you are actively or passively choosing whether you're going to maintain a culture that allows your future self to thrive.
It's good.
That's
So
good.
that's my first thing for cultures or for businesses. On the other end, we have the current market appetite for employees, and it is not to their advantage. And so I've been talking to a lot of people that are asking the question, I'm no longer in a place that I want to be in, but what do I do? Because it's very, very hard to get
Mhm.
hired right now. And
Absolutely.
this is sort of the advice I give out. In order to survive statistically, you only need one friend at your workplace to exponentially be able to stomach being there. So if you do not have one solid person, it can just be a work friend too. It doesn't have to be like your personal BFF, but like
Right.
one work person that you're able to go complain, talk to, have trust, depend on, that will exponentially help you stomach it. And I think there's a lot of tools that I help leaders with that are transferable to individuals that allow you to draw boundaries between what you're willing to give to a company and what you're going to cut off from their demands. And it is up to us, the individuals, to stand by that. And that's when the company will not honor it. And that's really, really hard, which circles back around to that's why you need that one person. But I think the support aspect when you have to stay is a really key piece to making sure that you can make it through until that pendulum swings back and now you have options again.
Because it always swings back. And
Always.
I wish that employers would notice this too, because their culture, like you were saying, that they're changing or developing now could come back to haunt them when it does swing back to the employee side of things. And
Absolutely.
it can ruin their business in a couple of years because it's bound to swing back. It always does. And whether it's another pandemic or whatever the case may be, it always does swing back.
War.
Yeah.
You know?
And their short-term
No,
Right.
business owners always forget that it swings back. Like you don't always have the upper hand.
I think that's
Yeah.
I think it's our nature, because we're typically reactive instead of proactive, and so we're used to only reacting to the current market rather than try to be proactive future.
Right.
Yeah. I think sometimes about the Maslow pyramid of needs, right? And the basic bottom is like, can you eat? Do you
Right.
have like a safe shelter, right? And then you get into these like, who am I? And what is my purpose? And things. And there's so many people in the world that live their entire lives on that lower part of the pyramid where you're just trying to make it and you don't have the luxury of the like bigger questions. And I think sometimes with businesses, we get wrapped up in only making sure that the bottom pyramid exists. And as business leaders, it is our responsibility, our obligation to everyone under our employ to think about that top echelon. Otherwise, we will not ever really see, I would say, exponential growth of our business because we're not lifting up the conversation to a place where possibility exists.
Sure.
And this is, I think, the opposite of that mentality, right? You're just thinking about that like day to day, what can I do right now to benefit me? But it doesn't matter if that scales out into something terrible later.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. Well, Rachel, as we wind down here, why don't you give yourself a little plug here of why either somebody should choose you for coaching or marketing or fractional CMO or whatever the case may be, that why you?
Yeah. So I like to work with a small group of people at a time. So if you really want someone that's highly focused on your specific business, your specific outcomes and needs, then I love working with people that are ready to really do something interesting or new. And so from a fractional marketing perspective, Pivot Studios, makeapivot.com is kind of where you find me and how I really engage. But from the other side, it's the human-centric-leader.com. And both websites talk to each other. So either one, you can find me from either place. But I want to help leaders who think that you can do both. You can have profit and you can be good to people. And if that's a culture, I can help you with that. If that's just you personally want to lead in such a way where you put humans first, then I want to work with you on that too. So that's the plug. That's why I think you should come.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to have all her links down below in the description, so it'll be easy for you to click on and be able to connect with her. So hopefully we can get you some business that way as well. Jared, you got anything that you want to add?
Thanks for being on the show. This has been a great conversation, really deep conversation, which is always great.
Yeah.
So thanks. It's really appreciated.
Yeah. Thanks for being vulnerable and willing to be vulnerable, really.
Of course, anytime. It was great being here. So thank you both, Jeff and Jared. This was
Absolutely.
a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And y'all make sure you connect with her down below. Visit her website, and hopefully some LinkedIn or whatever that we can go like her social medias and everything. And then that way we can help grow her. I mean, that's the free thing to do. If you need her business, reach out to her and let's see if we can get you some help that you need. So Thanks again, Rachel. Really appreciate it.
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.